broke a leg, they might have to know some survival techniques. Perhaps not as elaborate as this, but they should know something.
Morris, I can't begin to tell you how many years I was a Boy Scout, and I honestly, just between you and me, never did really learn how to light a fire. How many ways are there?
Well, you can light a fire with matches, or you can light a fire with a flint and steel, or with a bow drill, or with a metallic match. Cesium and iron filings or the rare earth element. That's basically the techniques that I know.
Say it's cold out like it is now, and all you have is a match, and you come into the woods and your car stalls on the highway. How would you go about lighting a fire? Can you demonstrate for me?
Yes, I think one of the best methods is the twig method of fire lighting, using the thin twigs like what we have over here.
I hate to get up from that soft bough of boughs that you have there.
And my matchbox. Yes, all we have here is a bundle of twigs that vary from pencil thickness to match thickness, and we want to break off these uneven ends. If you're in a survival situation, you'd find it very wise to bind this, because...
Now, what are you binding that with?
Oh, it's just grass. You could use many things. You might even sacrifice some part of your own clothing in order to bind it, just to make sure you'll get this fire going without a wastage of matches. Maybe the match that you're using might be the last one, or if you've got 10 more, you might be worried, so it's a good idea to do that.
Now why do you put it in a bundle like that instead of just laying them all down and lighting a match to it?
Well, when you have it in your hand this way, you can take it into the corner of your shelter and light it in the protection away from the wind. You find that it's easier to get the fire going by being able to maneuver the bundle rather than trying to light it near the ground. The other thing is that when you have it close to your body and protected from the wind, the cold from the ground does not cause your match flame to be weaker. You know, there is a lot of humidity and cold there.
While you're lighting that, why don't we come down here and light it? While you're lighting that, go ahead and tell me more about that fire.
Well, here we have a box of matches, which you want to take out a match. And it's convenient to hold the matchbox down with the striker that way under the thumb. Then we would take the match and cup it into our hand, support it with our fingers in case it breaks behind the head, strike, and then hold it into the bundle especially where you can get the match flame to play on the broken ends of the twigs.
Oh, it's catching. Oh, yeah.
It usually will light a lot better if it's a broken end rather than a...
Well, what about a windy day? I mean, a good breeze come along, wouldn't it blow that out?
If it was terribly windy, I'd probably take off my coat, stick a stick in the ground, and make a tent out of my coat and get right inside where there's absolutely no chance of any breezes getting. Now, here I'm rotating, and I'm getting the flame to play into the bundle. Now the wind will do nothing to my fire. It'll help it. The fiercer the wind, the harder that'll burn now. It's impossible to put that fire out.
Let me see.
Well, you could take it and pretend you've got a wind you burn holes in your jacket. Like it's very easy if it's I could throw it way up in the air and it'd hit the ground and the jolt wouldn't even put it out.
Well, be darned.
So we want to lay it down here where the fire is going to be.
I take it you have to have your pine boughs a bit of a distance away from your fire, huh?
Not too much of a problem. If you use grass, you might have more of a problem. The green boughs take quite a bit to ignite. You want to have a good pace away from the fire here for a comfortable fire. You get it too close, you'll get sparks that maybe fly that little further and burn holes in your clothing and your equipment. I always recommend a good pace from the front of the reflector. That way you can sort of creep back from the fire when it gets too hot.
Yeah, this is great, Morris, but now you have a thing called a reflector here, and you've got a beautiful lean-to, and you're adding sticks to the fire. But how do you go about building these things? For instance, this lean-to, this nice, sturdy, warm-looking business here, how do you go about building? Can you give me that step by step?
Yes. First of all, I think the most important part here is the ridgepole. We will just take a look over here. The ridgepole is put up shoulder high. You can see from here that it's about my shoulder height. That way you'll get a shelter that isn't going to be too big, so you waste time building it, and it's not going to be too small that you can't stay under it and keep out of the snow and everything that's falling down.
So you cut those, huh?
Yeah, you can break those, break that out, find a dry tree standing there. You don't have to be too neat in some respects. Then you get a large number of poles, which usually when you reach up comfortably with your hand, the poles will be sufficiently long for the rafters. Then when you've stood all the sticks apart about the span of the hand, you cover it with boughs, starting with a few big boughs so that they go as high as possible, and then they provide a foundation for the the shingling you might do with the other boughs. And of course, if you lay your boughs with the bottom of the bough out and the stems up, you're going to get maximum shedding. Through experimentation, we have devised that.
And I noticed down in here, the place where we're seated is, you have a little rise off the ground, so you're not right on the ground, huh?
Right. You'll probably find that that's a ploy you might use. You know, cold air tends to flow down to a lower spot. So when your fire is warming up the shelter, if you were flat on the cold ground, first of all, the cold would be so near you. Second of all, the ground would radiate cold. So when I've shoveled back the snow, I've laid down that log to make the edge of my bed and shoveled all the snow where my fire is going to be behind the log, and then on top of that I've laid boughs and, in a herringbone fashion, and I've given myself about 3 inches or so, or 3 layers of boughs, and that's going to be sufficient to insulate me from the snow. If I don't have a sleeping bag, I'd want more. Now, the more snow you dig out from between the fire and the bed, the drier it's going to get. It's going to be like your living room, and you're going to be very cozy. This reflector here...
Hey, this reflector's working great. How do you go about it? This is made with 3 logs. Obviously, I can see that, but you must use your axe on that thing.
Yes, you could get by without an axe. If we went walking over here, we'd likely see a few trees that we could use. These could be dry trees if it's really cold. The reflector you see here, you would want to build it and it's 20 below. Otherwise, you're going to go to a lot of effort and really maybe not get as much benefit. What happens with the reflector is that the heat that's radiated in 360 directions, what would have been radiated away from you gets bounced into the shelter, and thereby you use less wood for the same amount of... also, the flames will sort of play on the surface of the logs, and you get the impression of a fireplace sort of thing. There's a sheet of flame in front. You notice we light our fire right against the reflector. I'll just put a few more sticks on. I want to get a fire here.
Oh, yeah.
I like big fires.
I feel like I'm just standing here doing nothing while you're helping.
That's warm.
The heat from a reflector is...
smoky.
Well, when we throw in a handful with a little bit of snow on it, in a moment we get a smoke. But when you're wanting to smokeless fire, you have to be careful you use willow if you're sensitive at first. White poplar, this is black poplar that we have right here, but just a little further away you'll find white poplar. If you find a dead one, it's quite smokeless.
Morris, let's sit down here and relax a minute. Take a load off our feet. What would you say in about 30 seconds? This might be a hard question to answer, but what do you think is the most important thing for people to remember should they ever have to be into a survival situation?
Well, I would say that, first of all, don't go to the moon without a spacesuit. You should be prepared. Matches in the pocket, a pocket knife, and know something about the country you're going to get into, because if you don't, you're going to find insurmountable problems. If you know what you're getting into, you likely will be prepared.
Morris, I suppose knowing plant life in the area is very important too.
Oh yes, well, it depends how deep you're going to get into this. You know, there's 2 extremes. One extreme is that you carry a fairly large kit. The larger the kit, the less you might know. If you know an awful lot, you might not have to have anything.
We'll take a look inside Moore's kit and see what he's carrying, and we'll be back in just a bit.